Hold on a second, folks. Let's get this conversation into the commodities market. Of course, we just finished off with the palm oil market and what is going on with that, agri-commodities. So we're going to look at electricity. We spent some time in the last couple of days talking about the latest inflation numbers, but of course, electricity is also a cost push for companies, everyone from homes to businesses, the government, even the government itself. And that's why we have Amaka Ajebo, who is one of the research analyst team at Financial Derivatives here this morning. Let's launch straight into the electricity issue, because we can't over-discuss this problem and how companies are coping. So I'm going to ask you a very direct question. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you folks at Financial Derivatives handling this problem?
Yes, we're trying to handle it as best as we could, because the power situation in Nigeria is really dire. We're on average, the power on the grid is about 3,500 megawatts to supply a demand of over 40,000 megawatts a day. So you can understand this gap is causing serious distortions to people's businesses, to homes, to even the government, like you said. So the power situation in Nigeria is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem, because even for the government, because a couple of times you read in the news that a particular court was sitting down with the whole court filled with the judge, yes, and there's no light, and the case has to be adjourned. Exactly. And you say, hold on a second. One of the suspects runs away in the middle of the blackout, and some folks the guys get away with the handcuffs and things like that. So it could be that serious.
Yes.
Even at the National Assembly, time sessions have to be adjourned because there's no light.
Yes, exactly. And we try to look at the problem and say, okay, what's the solution?
What are you guys doing at your end? I'm trying to do a few things. Try to go to the market, get a few energy-saving bulbs. That's what it's called.
Yes.
Which is part of that here in the studios here. And say, if I could save some money, because it looks like the power ministry is ready to increase tariffs, so I'm thinking of very creative way, yes, to reduce my petrol, my diesel consumption.
Yes. Okay. And like you said, people are looking for creative ways to reduce their costs. But then if you look at the disparity between alternative power supply and public power supply, it's between the ranges of 100 and goes as high as 400%. So people are spending a lot of money on alternative power supply, and these power companies and discos and gencos are lamenting the fact that they haven't been able to invest since the privatization 3 years ago, because they don't have any money to invest. Most of these companies took up huge loans from the banks, and that is contributing to the problem in the banking sector. So most of these companies took huge loans from the banks to back up their bids for these companies, and now they've not been able to meet up to the standards and expectations due to their own constraints. So now they're asking the government for cost-effective tariffs that will help them increase their investments in the sector. But a major risk to that is that, okay, we increase the tariffs, but then these companies direct the money, the extra money they've gotten from these tariffs, into settling their loans and settling their debt. So that is a huge problem. So we find out that, okay, we're having to take on increased costs, but then we are not getting what we want via increased power output. So that's a risk that could arise.
It's a very naughty problem here, and I'm just looking for a bit of some easy solutions, as it were. Maybe it's time we change the bulbs. Perhaps I will use pressing irons that uses lower energy, isn't it?
Yes, but it's very important to note that it's important that we move towards these cost-reflective tariffs, because the demand for alternative power keeps increasing every day, and with increased demand you will see an increase in the price. So it's not good for the consumers. So it's good that it's important that homes, households, and producers, everyone take on this increased cost, so that we can see an increase in
you issued a warning here, isn't it?
Yes.
That we should be prepared for a tariff increase.
Yes, we should be, because if we want any improvements in the power sector, there has to be investments, and the people who would do the investments are complaining that they don't have the resources to do so, because they are not getting the environments that they need to invest. So we need cost-reflective tariffs if these companies are going to invest.
I'm not going to put you on the wire, on the line for how much rates should go, because there's still a lot of very deep-seated angst over there. If you increase tariffs, folks who have prepaid meters will say, well, at least I can see what I'm using. For those of us who are still on the old legacy NEPA meters, will get crazy bills, quote unquote, and might be the bills will get a lot more crazier. That is where we find ourselves, but that sector really needs money, needs new investment.
It really needs new investments, and you need to encourage, incentivize these investors to invest. So currently, you can look at, even transcends the power sector, so you look at the interest rates in the market, the investment culture in the market. The regulatory environment as well? Is it lucrative, or is it efficient for me to invest in this sector? And these are the considerations that these companies will be looking at.
All this is going to boil down to the consumer goods, first inflation. Because in last year, once we were handling the petrol prices, diesel, petrol, kerosene, and trying to hold our own, electricity was very, very nasty, as it were. Then we saw that in the inflation numbers. If tariff comes in, perhaps the 1st of August. Okay. Do you think this will have some implications for inflation numbers?
Of course it will, but there's a timeline to this, but then it would have cost implications on prices. But then we also need to understand that most of these manufacturers, let me break it down, most of these manufacturers are spending a lot on alternative power. So there's a revision in the tariffs, and then you have to pay increased cost for public power. Yes, that's given. They will push this cost on prices, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad situation, because if these